You look,
Robin Milling, ANS Entertainment.
you look like somebody who likes nature and outdoors and healthy life.
That's me.
You're not your typical like, you know, super made up like TV person.
I love
You're
you.
you're like a real person. I love that. I could see like gardening with you or something, or go sailing.
Okay, love you.
Okay.
Let's go. I love this movie, and I'll tell you, the opening sequences were like the most realistic depiction of war that I've seen since Saving Private Ryan.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you.
What were the challenges of shooting some of those combat scenes for you?
Well, first of all, we were shooting the movie in the country of Georgia less than a year after the real war happened. So it was a very emotional experience to be in the actual locations, dealing with the actual people who had come through this. And then doing scenes, which I think no filmmaker has done in several decades, where you have real tanks. We had 80 tanks, we had 6 fighter jets, we had 8 helicopters, we had thousands of troops. So nothing in this movie is digital, everything is real. So creating these battle scenes, explosions, and all this huge action was dangerous and challenging. Plus we had people who spoke 17 different languages on our set. So we had an army of translators. So there was every possible challenge for us, but that made it exciting and really an enjoyable experience.
Did anybody get hurt?
No. And I really take a lot of pride in making sure that while I want the action to be as extreme as possible, we're still making a movie, so I don't want the actors or stuntmen or extras or crew members ever to get hurt. So you go to great lengths in making sure that everybody is safe. Then again, when you have 2,000 civilians running away as helicopters are shooting rockets and buildings are exploding around them, you just have to pray that everybody listen to you when you are saying like, go this way. If you go that way, you'll be blown up. And in this case, it really worked out well.
Now, I understand that you visited Georgia prior and you actually talked with some of the survivors or people that were witness to the war, so tell me what
Yes, I did a lot of research for the film, and at first when I decided to tell this story, I didn't even know exactly how I would approach it. When I went there and I talked to a lot of the refugees, there were 80,000 refugees who lost their homes, and I talked to the journalists who had been there during the war, and 5 journalists were killed during the war. I decided that I wanted to tell the story from a journalist's point of view, because these are the unsung heroes, and I'm sure we all have read and heard in the news in recent days and months how in the hotspots now in Egypt and Libya and so on, journalists are put at great risk. So I wanted to tell the story from their point of view and the civilians' point of view, and not from a soldier's point of view. And that to me was just the most powerful way of telling this story.
What was the most surprising story that you might have heard?
Well, there are very tragic stories, and it's shocking that in modern warfare, it's not what you think when you picture like Second World War battles, where there's 2 sides. There's the Germans and there's the French, and they're shooting at each other. In today's war, it's much more primal in a way that it's many times really directed toward the civilian population. It's a strategy of scaring the civilians to just fleeing, and it's very savage. So those stories were the most shocking. On the other hand, the sort of, if one could say, interesting and funny stories were that there was a French journalist who was this woman, very attractive woman, who always wore a miniskirt. And that gave her access to places that no other reporter could go to. Because you still, even if you're on the Georgian side, they will stop you at a certain point and say it's too dangerous to go to the front lines, and you can't go, the road is closed, or whatever. But he was always in high heels and miniskirt. And they would say like, oh, you want to ride to the thing? Okay, get in our tank, we'll take you there. So she got the most amazing and harrowing stories from the front lines, and nobody else could get. And she had this favorite saying. She said, people would say like, how do you do this? And she said, everything is easier in a miniskirt. And so I included her in the movie, in the story.
She got around in high heels. Good for
Yeah,
her.
yeah. But at the same time, she was right there where the action was, with things exploding and bullets flying.
Do you think this is any parallel to what's still going on here in Afghanistan?
Yes, and I understand that the audience at large is tired of war, and we are tired of hearing about this in the news. And I try to tell a story that centers on a country that I think is very relatable for us. Because I understand when you talk about Afghanistan and Iraq and Kosovo and Rwanda, many times the fact that the landscape is so foreign to us, the religion, the customs, the way people dress, is so far from our sort of American reality. It's easy to sort of close your ears and eyes and say, like, I can't relate to that. And in this case, in the country of Georgia, it's very much like a mainstream European country. People look just like you and I, where they live. It's, you know, it's a beautiful country. And so I felt that telling this story and trying to get this to the audience at large and entertaining them in terms of telling a dramatic and exciting and action-packed and even romantic story would bring them to the theater, and at the same time it'll offer them actually something to think about instead of just pure popcorn entertainment, but something to think about, something that is really emotional, and hopefully when you leave the theater you can actually talk to your friends about the film and not just say like, oh, that was fun, next.
Absolutely, it does create a lot of dialogue. How are you going to top this? What's your next project?
Good question. I think that this project changed me a lot. Having done mainstream action movies and thrillers, I felt when I was doing this that I was really doing something that was close to my heart. And I felt, just looking at the Georgians who were involved and their eyes and their tears, I felt like I really now used my skills for something worthwhile. And it also created a certain sense of responsibility as an artist and as an entertainer. So I hope that my future movies also will still be big popcorn entertainment, but also, whether they are love stories or thrillers or dramas, that they would actually give people something real, something about life that makes you think and maybe, you know, sort of elevates you a little bit when you walk out of the theater.
Great, thank you very much.
Great.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.